In particular, there is a deep concern in Tel Aviv that the American public opinion is no longer amenable to war anymore because of the videos and images that they've seen on social media that have been shared by everybody here, that have been created by people here, shared, etc. There was a report in CNN where Trump had told Netanyahu that my people are seeing too many photos and images of what's happening in Gaza. The reason they're being shown is because the algorithm is elevating that content, because people in London and South Africa keep sharing that content over and over, and they keep raising awareness as a result. So Trump told Netanyahu that my base, the people who vote for me, are seeing too many of those gruesome images, and therefore I'm unable to continue supporting you in the way that you want. Netanyahu became so concerned by the shift in public opinion, by the views that are expressed now by former Zionists like Candace Owens, like Tucker Carlson, and these others, that Trump bypassed the Israelis and started negotiating with the Iranians directly to try to find a deal, whether it's related to the nuclear deal and also a ceasefire in Gaza, by sending Adam Bola to go negotiate with Hamas directly. The Israelis were so upset by it that they leaked talk of the negotiations with Hamas when they discovered it from a source aside from Trump. And they were so concerned with the talks taking place with the Iranians out of fear that a deal could be struck with the Iranians, that the Israelis decided to influence the negotiations rather than deter Trump from them. So the Israelis proposed to Donald Trump, they told him that we should move the goalpost of the negotiations. Instead of allowing Iran 3% enrichment, let's make it 0% enrichment, which is very unreasonable to ask of any particular nation. The Iranians had been going well in the negotiations until they got to this point, and they told Donald Trump that this is a condition that's a bit too much for us. Trump is not a warmonger by nature, but the Israelis said to him on the 61st day of the negotiations that, Mr. Trump, we want to go to war with the Iranians. Trump said, I'm not interested in sending my troops to war. One of the reasons he made the ceasefire with the Houthis is because, according to the reports in US media, Trump summoned the commander of the US forces and asked them, how much are we spending a month to bomb the Houthis? They told him we're spending about 1 billion, 1.5 billion. Trump was so horrified by it, he said, I'm not spending 1.5 billion of money on something that I don't see any immediate interest. And he unilaterally signed a ceasefire. So the Israelis changed their tactic. They told Donald Trump that given the Iranians are not moving, allow us to hit them and that might help your negotiations. The Israelis thought that if we can pitch it as Donald Trump pressuring the Iranians will do something that will force Donald Trump into an all-out war, and then we can move the topic from Gaza, which is affecting his base, to the Iranians, which is an easier enemy to market to the Americans. The Israelis, when they attacked the Iranians and they started hitting Tehran, they expected the Americans to immediately come in. They were surprised to find that the Iranians contacted the Americans and said, we want no business to do with you. We're not going to attack any American bases. This is just between us and the Israelis. The Israelis attacked Iran again, killing senior leaders. The Iranians were taken by surprise. They didn't expect Trump to give permission, which is why they were sleeping with their families, which is very unusual if you're expecting an attack. But nevertheless, 2-3 days would pass. Missiles will start hitting Tel Aviv. And the Israelis expected Trump to intervene after Tel Aviv was hit. They thought Trump would be like Biden or like Harris, who gave unfettered blind support to the Israelis regardless of what happened. They were shocked to find that Trump instead went, I'm not getting involved into a war over here, let's see how it keeps going. The Israelis began to launch a campaign in US media that the US has to intervene. And they were surprised to find that a hashtag started spreading in America, I'm not willing to die for Israel. I'm not willing to go to war with Israel. There was even an AI video which showed an American family where the parents tell their son, you have to go and die for Israel. And the son says, why have I got to fight for Israel? If you don't, you're anti-Semitic. It was a satire video that was going around. Tucker Carlson did that interview with Ted Cruz, the congressman that you guys saw, where he's asking, I don't understand, what is America's interest here? Why are we doing it? And Ted Cruz has a car crash of an interview, which makes Trump continue to hesitate on the 5th day, 6th day, 7th day. Israel is starting to run out of missiles. They don't have, remember, they're a proxy state. They can't survive without the US, while the Iranians, who have nothing to lose, are just firing everything now at the Israelis because they need to respond. The Israelis then start tweeting and saying that America has a vested interest in defending the Israelis, And if you don't want to die for the sake of Israel, watch what Iran does to you. Still, that doesn't move the American population. So what happened, in my opinion, is the Iranians made it clear that we don't want war. Like, we're not ready for it either. Americans made it clear we don't want to spend resources on a war. So Trump, in my opinion, and this is just my analysis, views expressed on my own, Trump sent 2 bombers to Iran and told them, look, I need an off-ramp for all of this. I need to tell my population that I did something. So I need to bomb some facilities. So they said, okay, no problem. Just give us a couple of days. We'll remove the nuclear enrichment from those areas. So they removed nuclear enrichment for those 3 areas. Trump went in and bombed those 3 areas and said, we destroyed their whole nuclear program. We destroyed all of it. And the Iranians, of course, said, we managed to get it out. And it got leaked that they managed to get it out. And then the Iranians said, Mr. President, if you don't mind, you know, now you got your off-ramp. We'd like an off-ramp too. Do you mind if we send some missiles on a base in Al Udeid in Qatar? Yes. We'll give you notice beforehand. They withdrew 3 days prior. Trump said, no problem. You do what you got to do. The Qataris, they had notice beforehand. 13 missiles were fired, not 200. They managed to take them out. You know, they didn't. And then they de-escalated. The Israelis, realizing that the Iranians and Trump had negotiated between themselves a de-escalation, panicked. So they said, no, Mr. Trump, wait, there are 5 more nuclear targets. There are 5 more that we need, which is why Trump came out when he walked out the White House and said they don't know what the hell they are doing. But specifically attacking the Israelis, blaming them for trying to jeopardize that ceasefire. But the point I want to emphasize here is this. The reason Trump hesitated is not only because he believes that it's just an expensive war and he has no interest in it. His base are no longer interested in war abroad, and his base are no longer interested in supporting the Israelis without question in the way that they used to in the past, because his base have been subjected to the call of the Palestinians that was amplified and shared by everybody here. When South Africa took the ICJ case, everybody was skeptical. When the judges ruled that Israel has to answer the case, that normalized language such as they're committing genocide. This is apartheid. It was South Africa that normalized that language, which then became normalized in American public opinion. And Candace Owens was on Piers Morgan program. Just so no one thinks, by the way, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not. Motivational speaker means you talk without substance. That's what it means. I'm a political risk analyst. That's my day job. My day job, I've advised governments, I've advised the State Department, I've advised governments in the Middle East region, I've advised the European Union, I've advised all of these various different NGOs, governments, entities, foreign ministries, and the like. And I'm still consulted in that regard. I'm not telling you something that is motivational. Candace Owens went on the Piers Morgan show, and Piers Morgan asks her, how are you, somebody who was Zionist, now coming out so heavily against the Zionists? And she says, Piers, you know my whole career I've been a friend of the Zionists. But this is her exact verbatim next sentence. But the images and videos that I've seen on social media mean that I, as a Christian, cannot condone what Israel is doing in terms of the bombing of children. Where did she see it? Did she see it on CNN? Did she see it on BBC? Did she see it on CNBC? Did she see it on Fox News? Where did she see it? She saw it on social media. And that's the reason why sometimes I feel like we need to stress we're not operating in silos. It's the efforts that you did here and that we did in America, that you did in America, that we did in the UK. It's all of these that combined together created a wave whereby now Israel is struggling to influence foreign policy in America in the way that it used to. And I want to finish just on these 2 points to address this particular point, to highlight why Trump hesitated on Iran. There was a meeting of Zionists in the US, I think it was. Norm Coleman is the head of the Republican Jewish Coalition. It's really the Republican Zionist Coalition. The Jews that are innocent of what this person talks about. And he said that we Zionists are losing the digital war. Americans don't like us anymore. And if we keep losing this digital war, this will have grave consequences for the future of Israel. Meaning we can't survive without the Americans supporting us. If you want to continue apartheid, we need the Americans to continue supporting us. The point that I'm saying is that that shift in public opinion cannot be understated, because now what you're seeing, and this is the point I wanted to round up on in terms of the impact that here in South Africa and all of us collectively had. I don't know if anybody's following the New York mayoral race for the primary. There is Andrew Cuomo who's backed by AIPAC and has more than $25 million for his primary runs, who has just been beaten by a 33-year-old newcomer called Zohran Mandani. Why? Because Zohran, they made the whole campaign about Israel, and New Yorkers no longer like they don't like genocide, they don't like apartheid. And when the issue became Israel, the New Yorkers said, why is this an issue here? Why is it an issue here in New York? And Zionism became a political liability. That's the first time I have ever seen it happen, where Zionism is the reason that a candidate loses that Democratic primary. The reason I'm linking all this to Iran is, the reason there wasn't war in the region is not because America doesn't have a bloodlust to go to war. It's because the American public have no tolerance for war. Not necessarily because they're tired of it. They lost in Vietnam, they still ended up going to Iraq. They lost in Iraq, they still went to Afghanistan. They lost in Afghanistan and they still decided to go and help the Israelis. There's still a bloodlust for war, but the public no longer have a bloodlust for war anymore, because when the public heard the call of justice and righteousness, they shifted in such a way that the President of America said, I'm not sure I want to upset this base. And I really want to hit this particular point home. Not because I want to exaggerate the importance of public opinion, but because there are times when people feel tired about constantly saying the same thing over and over again. Me and my mother are in Texas. I wanted to show her this masjid in Houston, Masjid Maryam. We ordered an Uber, and the Uber came, and when we entered it, the man has a redneck. He's a redneck, white American, clearly old, looks at my mother with a hijab and abaya and says, where are y'all from? And my mother didn't sense the tone, the aggressive, passive-aggressive tone. She just went, I'm from Algeria. Where are you from? And she said, do you know where Algeria is? And he said, I don't know where Algeria is. I've really never been outside America, and I went to Mexico once. Meaning, I haven't seen the world. I don't know what goes on in the world. So what's the source of information they get? Probably Fox News or something else. Which means, it's not that people are evil, it's that they don't know what's happening. And when we decided to tell them what's happening, things started changing, just as the world changed when they realized the reality of apartheid after they broke the filters that people were spreading the news with regards to apartheid. Those students started doing encampments, just like we're seeing all of the parallels take place. And that's why I think that there was no war in the Middle East, because public opinion is shifting in such a way that the Israelis can no longer command the Americans in the way that they once did.